My name is Nick Bjorklund, and I am a pitch and public speaking coach here in Paris, and I'm here to speak to you about the future of startup support and what that means. It's a pretty interesting question because at first I didn't know how to answer it. I didn't know whether I should take it from the point of view of being a coach and working with startups from around the world. I didn't know if I should take it from the point of view of being a startup myself. Or rather, should I take it from a global perspective and to see how these different entities are working together and collaborating and innovating in ways that you've never seen before in the world? With all these different perspectives running around my head, I was hit with a very old parable, the blind men and the elephant. The story goes that a bunch of blind men were sitting around talking about the arrival of a new and exotic animal called an elephant. They'd never heard of an elephant, they'd never touched or smelled an elephant, so they decided that the next day they would set out to discover what it truly was. Upon arrival, the first one touched its trunk and said, "Ah, an elephant is like a snake because it's long and thick." Another one touched its tail and said, "An elephant is like a rope." The third touched the tusk and said, "Wait, an elephant is like a spear because it's long and sharp." Another one, holding the ear, said, "An elephant must be like a fan because it's wide and flat." And another still touched the leg and said, "You're all wrong, an elephant is like a tree." Now, they're not all right, obviously, but they're not all wrong either from their individual perspective. So if I asked a VC, what does the startup industry look like? He would give me an example. He would give me an answer. If I asked a corporate collaborator, same question, but a different answer. If I asked a student at university, he would give me a different answer. If I asked a startup in Europe, he would give me another answer. If I asked a startup in Africa, he would give me a different answer. And the list goes on and on and on. So essentially, as we're all microorganisms in this global ecosystem, how do we make a difference and how do we work together? What is the support we need? Another way to look at it are being individual actors on a very large stage or being individual players in a very, very, very large game. Game theory states that there are two different types of games. The first is a finite game. It is defined by having a set number of players, a beginning and a definite end, and externally defined rules. Don't think about chess or checkers, but think about it from the perspective of a job interview. A job interview has two players, the interviewer and the interviewee. The job interview has a beginning, a handshake, a hello, and the end. We'll call you in a bit. You'll get the job or you won't. And lastly, and most importantly, job interviews have an external set of rules. We both have non-verbally agreed upon the way it is to be conducted. Now, infinite games, which are far more complex, do not have a set number of players, nor do they have a beginning or an end. They have the goal of being continuously played. And most importantly, they have internally defined rules, meaning I will decide the rules which I will abide by to succeed in the game. And this brings us to a very interesting question, because often when I work with startups for pitch battles or challenges or competitions, they're put in front of a competition to win, a finite game. They want to be the ones holding the trophy at the end of the day. But is that how we measure success? Isn't success in this situation rather built upon the contacts that we make and the relationships that we foster afterwards, the deals that can happen, the infinite game that awaits us? In defining our level of success, it's something that we do intuitively, we do internally, but rarely do explicitly. We're too focused on building a prototype and an MVP, which is normal. We need to build our businesses, like I do, like everybody does. But if we answered those questions honestly, what is your level of success? We might be a bit embarrassed of the answer. I know for myself personally, I can picture myself at 35, retired on a beach, millions in the bank, sipping a cocktail. Now, what do I have to do to get there? Essentially, there's one thing that happens consistently in life, whether you like it or not: sacrifice. And if you don't choose your sacrifice, the debt will be paid. So consider the youth of the world, no matter where you're from. You are filled with potential, yet you've achieved nothing. So you have all the chance in the world to succeed, but have succeeded in nothing. So by society's standards, you are unsuccessful. This is not an insult, but rather it comes with the territory. Imagine that you decide not to make that sacrifice. Well, then at 35, you're not going to be on the beach. You're going to be in your parents' basement. And then a knock at the door and sacrifice will be waiting for its day. So we have in an industry an idea called potential for infinite growth. It's a level of success that I think we can all strive to achieve. It comes with the territory. Now, who pays the debt in that? We can think of the most innovative companies, the unicorns, as we call them. Maybe the ones who have invented the gig economy, for example. Delivery services who have revolutionized the industry, who have given a new dynamic to restaurants and their capacity to serve. Now, me, the consumer, sitting in Paris, I'm very happy to get my pizza at midnight on a Saturday night for €8. But working at a soup kitchen, I've actually met couriers from those same delivery services coming to get a meal because they can't afford it. There's the biggest online marketplace in the world, which has been in existence from 1996, has given a great service. They give cheaper prices and faster delivery. But actually, they don't produce anything. And more importantly, they've just acquired a supermarket chain that within a first year of acquisition have stopped accepting food stamps as a form of payment at a supermarket. This is the ugly side of sacrifice and a reality that I think we all need to face, because we're coming in face to something that is much deeper than just success, but rather our personal values and our global values. To address the elephant in the room, the reason why I'm not with you today, COVID-19, I even hate to say the word itself, but the reality that it is, the 9, 10, 11 months now we've been dealing with it, we've come to face the individual at odds with the collective, the global. And it's an interesting thing, because here we're faced with a collective problem, but we're unable to solve it. And why? It's because we've not been prepared. For the last 50 years, we've been telling one another and telling our children, strive to be the best you can be. Make all the money you can. And I'm the first to admit it. But now we have something that deserves and requires our global consciousness and our collective responsibility. There is also another thing that has poured gas on the fire: social media. And from a startup perspective, it's rather interesting, because 15 years ago, before social media, an industry that is less than 15 years old, an image was something left to marketers, left to commercialization. But before I even have gotten my first client, people are telling me I need to assure my internet presence, to assure my image. And that's an interesting thing, because startups by definition have a bit of hubris. You need it. You need it to survive. You need to believe that you're the best. You need to believe that you'll succeed. You need to believe all of these things. And what social media does to children, we have to be rather arrogant to underestimate that it's not going to happen to us. Obviously it does. If my company posts something on LinkedIn and it gets X amount of likes, it affects my dopamine the same way it does a 15-year-old adolescent. Again, these are the realities that we face, and there is a bit of a silver lining. And I'll say this to you in a way of physics, actually, because scientists who work in physics work in a very specific paradigm. They work in what you know, what you know you don't know, and then what you don't know, you don't know. And it's very interesting to apply to the situation that we find ourselves in, not only locally and specifically today, but in a larger perspective of the industry for the past 50 years. I could tell you about Kodak and corporates refusing innovation and emerging markets. And you know that. I could tell the startup the market validation or problem solution dichotomy. You know. What about what we know we don't know? That takes our values, that takes personal responsibility, morals, and most importantly, ethics. Now, what we don't know takes something even greater. And this is really the key point of what I want to tell you. And this is the key of the future of supporting startups, is what we don't know, that costs and that demands trust in your fellow person, trust in your neighbor, trust in your community, trust in them to do the right thing. And the great thing about it is that it starts with you. That's your market advantage. That's your competitive advantage, is that you have the power to do it. We have the power to do it. I have the power. Because there's another thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about sacrifice, is that children have a tendency to sacrifice the world of their parents. They throw out old traditions to build new. And this is where we have to put our attention, is in not only the children and the youth around the world, but the children represented in markets. They're the ones who are going to build the world tomorrow. We can't believe that we're going to set our flag and it will remain standing the whole way through. The world changes, the world innovates. What you know, you know. What we don't know, we don't know. That's what drives us, and that's what we need to figure out. That's the future of supporting startups. Thank you for your time. Hope to talk to you again soon.